as wide as 1.5 million species that may exist, and approximately 100,000 species that have been described, our group presents fungi, along with its general distinguishing characteristics, their classifications, some representative organisms, and new updates on the group of microbes. Fungi, a large, diverse, and widespread group of organisms, consist of eukaryotic organisms, with the majority belonging to multicellular, but there is also the presence of unicellular. Under the fungal morphology, spores, and cell walls, most fungi are multicellular, forming a network of filaments called hyphae that are tubular cells surrounding the cytoplasmic membrane. As seen in the figure, fungal hyphae are often septate with cross walls dividing each hypha into separate cells. However, in some cases, the vegetative cell of a fungal hypha contains more than one nucleus, and hundreds of nuclei can form due to repeated nuclear divisions without the formation of cross walls. This condition is known as cyanocytic. Hyphae typically grow together across a surface and form a compact, macroscopically visible tuft called a mycelium. From the mycelium, hyphal branches may reach up into the air above the surface, and spores called conidia are formed on these aerial branches. Some fungi form macroscopic reproductive structures called fruiting bodies. For example, are mushrooms or puffballs in which spores are produced and from which they can be dispersed. Most fungal cell walls consist of chitin, arranged in the walls in microfibrial bundles to form a thick and tough wall structure. Fungal cell walls are typically 80 to 90% polysaccharide with proteins, lipids, polyphosphates, and inorganic ions making up the wall cementing matrix. With its widespread number, most fungi are terrestrial in terms of habitat. They inhabit soil or dead plant matter and play crucial roles in the mineralization of organic carbon. Looking on its genetics, fungi form a phylogenetic cluster distinct from other organisms and are most closely related to animals than plants. On its reproducing capacity, many types can do both sexual and asexual reproduction involving the use of spores, which is why this group can easily grow into a number of species.
So now let's talk about the growth requirements of fungi. Many of them can grow at environmental extremes of low pH or high temperature, up to 62 degrees Celsius. And this, coupled with the ease of dispersal of fungal spores, makes these organisms common contaminants of food, microbial culture media, and surfaces of all sorts. For their feeding mechanism, fungi feed by secreting extracellular enzymes that digest complex organic materials such as polysaccharides or proteins into sugars, peptides, amino acids, and so on, which are assimilated as sources of carbon and energy. As for the fungal physiology and symbiosis, nutrition and physiology fungi are chemoorganotrophs, typically with simple nutritional requirements, and most are aerobes. Most plants are dependent on certain fungi to facilitate their uptake of minerals from soil. A large number of fungi are plant parasites. These fungi form symbiotic associations with the plant roots called Mycorrhizae. Fungi also form symbiotic associations with cyanobacteria or green algae. These are called lichens and appear as colorful, crusty growths on the surfaces of trees and rocks. There are two kinds of mycorrhizal associations. The first type is Ectomycorrhizae, which is typically formed between basidiomycetes and the roots of woody plants. The fungal hyphae form a sheath around the plant root but do not penetrate the root extensively. The second type is Endomycorrhizae, which is formed between Glomero fungi and many herbaceous non-woody plants. The fungal hyphae embed deeply in the plant root tissue, forming swollen vesicles or branching invaginations or arbuscules. There are numerous ecological activities associated to this microorganism. A major ecological activity of fungi, especially basidiomycetes, is the decomposition of wood, paper, cloth, and other products derived from these natural sources. Lignin, an important constituent of woody plants, is decomposed in nature almost exclusively through the activities of certain basidiomycetes called wood-rotting fungi. However, despite their major contributions in the ecological activity, fungi can invade and cause diseases in plants and animals. As seen on the photo, stripe rust pustules on winter wheat leaf is a symptom of fungal disease in plants. Fungi can be sources of numerous economically significant diseases of crop plants. A few fungi cause diseases in animals, including humans, although in general, fungi are less important as animal pathogens than are other microorganisms. There are also human fungal diseases called mycosis, ranging from relatively minor and easily cured conditions such as athlete's foot, to serious life-threatening systemic mycosis such as histoplasmosis. Even if fungi pose a threat to one's health, it should still be noted that they play an important role in the field of medicine since many antibiotics are derived from fungus. An example of this is the first accidentally discovered antibiotic, which is the penicillin. It was from a mold, which is a fungus.
So the next part of the report is the classification of fungi. They were once classified together with the plant kingdom because, like plants, they are sessile, meaning they are fixed in one place. They also have the same growth habitat, which is the soil, and both of them possess a cell wall. So these are the reasons why they were first classified as plants. However, they were separated to their own kingdom because it was discovered that they were different from plants because their cell walls are made of chitin and not cellulose. And they absorb nutrients from other organisms, and there is also more unique physical, chemical, and genetic traits of fungi which are dissimilar from plants. So the 7 different phyla of kingdom fungi are established through their mode of sexual reproduction or by also using molecular data like the sequencing of 18S rRNA. Here are the 7 different phyla and some short descriptions. So the first phylum is Diomycota. They are the simplest and most primitive true fungi. Most of them are aquatic, but some are parasitic. They are also unicellular or filamentous, and they reproduce through asexual reproduction by motile spores. So next is Blastocladio Mycota. They are saprotrophs and parasitic on eukaryotic groups. They undergo meiosis in their spores and are also flagellated. Next is the Neocalimastigomycota. They are anaerobic and lives in the digestive systems of large herbivorous animals. They lack mitochondria but contains hydrogenosomes for production of ATP. Then we have Zygomycota. They reproduce sexually with spores called zygospores and asexually through sporangiospores. Some members can cause food spoilage and diseases. Then, moving on, we have Glomero Mycota, in which they form obligate, mutualistic, symbiotic relationships where the hyphae penetrates the roots of higher plants. Then we have the 2 phyla in the subkingdom Dicaria. First, we have Ascomycota, or the sac fungi. They produce through ascospores located in a sac-like structure called ascus. And majority of the known fungi are under this phylum, which are used in different commercial purposes. Lastly, we have Vasilo Mycota, where they produce spores on club-like stalks like Basidia. Most mushrooms are under this phylum. And we also have this Deuteromycota, where it is an informal group of unrelated fungi. They are called imperfect fungi because they reproduce only through asexual reproduction. So those are the classification of the kingdom fungi.
Next, we will be discussing about the representative organisms of fungi. First one on the list is Rhizopus Stolonifer, aka the black bread mold. This is a common zygomycete, and it is known to have a complex life cycle, meaning it has both asexual and sexual reproduction. Under asexual reproduction, sporangiospore formation and chalmidospore formation occur. And under sexual reproduction, gametagial copulation occurs. This Rhizopus Stolonifer also possesses a thallus that is white, cottony, and a much branched mycelium, as they described it. This mycelium is differentiated into nodes and internodes, and the nodal region bears much branched rhizoid that grows downward, and it grows downward inside the substratum for anchorage and absorption of food. The internodal region is the aerial and arcing hyphae, known as the stolon, which when touches the substratum forms the nodal region. The next representative organism is the Amanita Muscaria. This Amanita Muscaria is a basidromycete fungus that comes from the order Agaricales. It is also known as a fly swatter, a false oronha, or fly agaric, among other names. It is the best known mushroom because it is that typical mushroom that you watch from fairy tales, because this mushroom has a bright red veil or hat with white warts. The common name of this Amanita muscaria, the fly swatter, actually comes from the effect of the mushroom on flies and other insects, because when insects come into contact with this fungus, they are immediately and temporarily paralyzed. And this Amanita muscaria is seen as this typical umbrella-shaped mushroom, and its height varies between 10 and 20 centimeters. Its foot is cylindrical, robust, straight, and it has this white or cream color, and it has a ring. This ring is described to be wide and membranous. And above the hat of this mushroom, we can see numerous remains of the veil. The remains of the veil are white and cottony in consistency, and they can be arranged in concentric circles. So that is your Amanita muscaria, and those are the two representative organisms of fungi.
Recent studies on fungi. In 2017, a study conducted by Choi and Kim presented a proteome tree for the members of the fungi of known genome sequences. In contrast with the current gene trees consisting of 4 to 8 major groups in the fungi kingdom, there are only 3 earliest diverging and deepest branching major groups in the proteome tree. This consists of Monocaria, Basidiomycota, and Ascomycota fungal groups. The number of new fungi species catalogued for 2019 by March 2020 on Index Fungorium was 1,882. However, in 2020, there is still no concrete number of newly discovered fungi species, but here are some of the most notable ones. Strongwellsia acerosa and Strongwellsia tigrini. These 2 new species of fungi were discovered by the researchers at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark. They are deadly parasitic fungi that turn their fly hosts into quote-unquote zombies. The parasites do this by devouring their hosts from the inside, then eventually bursting the abdomen of their still living prey. The infected flies continue to buzz around for days even with the massive holes in their bodies. Triglomyces twitteri sp. nov. Triglomyces twitteri sp. nov is a parasitic fungus from the order Labulbiniales.
or the highly specialized arthropod-associated fungi. The new species was first discovered from a picture of an American millipede, Cambala annulata, shared on Twitter in 2018. Diabolocovidea claustri spin-off. Diabolocovidea claustri was named out of frustration from the lockdown that occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic. Belonging in the family Silariaceae, this new species was discovered from tiny leopard-looking spots on saw palmetto leaves.